All right, it's 6:01. Start the regular meeting. Valley Cemetery District for January 27th. Allison, would you call the roll?
Director Martinson.
Here.
Director Kentosh.
Here.
Director Berg.
Here.
Director Quillisi.
Here.
And Chair Stone.
Here.
And it looks like we have Director Ulrich, not present and not remote. And then we have Director Curtis, that I believe is remote and wants to address the board item.
Okay, that's a 2449.
I believe so.
Mr. Curtis,
Yes.
it's your turn to address us for your 439.
Well, I'd like you to let me join you because I'm incapacitated. I can't make it to the meetings yet.
Okay. I think that's fine. We need a motion. Go ahead and do a motion. So we're,
I'll move that we accept Jack under the rule of the Bill 2449.
Second that.
So is this a one-time thing or it's every meeting?
well, we ask for the 2449 every time. But it's depending on if we have anybody that to do tonight, Jack.
I just didn't know if it was a blanket approval.
No, the requests and the circumstances have to be stated, either in writing or verbally, the board by whatever director is requesting it. And then a determination is made each individual board meeting, each individual request.
We can probably just have a voice vote. You want to call the roll?
I'd ask a question. Bring the,
It's not
He's
here.
not here. We don't have an attorney here this evening.
If you want to have a question, I'm sure that Scott or
okay, I mean, is this within the rules? There are certain things that are allowed to be.
Yeah, the state law says you can do this a certain number of times per year for just cause or for medical emergency.
Medical. Okay, that's all.
I think we should do a roll.
Yeah, let's go ahead and do a roll call. Just
Okay. Director Martinson, Kentosh,
Yes.
Director Berg,
Yes.
see,
Yes.
and Chair Stone.
yes. Okay, you're in, Jack.
Thank you.
Now you stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag, United States of America,
of America.
to the republic,
To the
stands,
for which it stands,
nation,
one
under God,
indivisible, under God.
liberty, and justice for all.
Yeah, so it is easy.
Okay, do we have any additions or amendments to the agenda?
We do not.
Public concerns, I see people up there, but I don't see,
Liz is up there, but she's not.
I haven't seen any visitors in, so.
I believe Emily White is with A to Z Law.
Okay,
Welcome.
can you hear us, Emily?
I can, thank you. And yes, I am here for May to Z Law. I apologize for the voice. I lost my voice.
Oh, no. Okay, well, keep us on the straight and narrow, please.
I will.
We'll move on to consent items, items 6 and 7. Posey.
I asked about 6. We approved the minutes. Oh, special meeting January 7th. I didn't see any minutes.
Read the
Couldn't find them. Oh, I hit that link and it says November 25th.
I'll have to look at that. I mean, they were in the packet.
minutes were of the no. I wasn't there and I actually.
All right, we'll have to read the motion in a second.
Approval then of 6 and 7.
Second.
Motion second. Anybody have anything they'd like to ask on either one of these items?
I wasn't at that meeting.
Correct. Allison, we have a motion second. Can you call the roll, please?
Director Martinson,
Yes.
Kintosh, Berg,
Yes.
Director Quillisi,
Yes.
Director Curtis,
I abstain. I was not present.
Kirsten.
Yes.
Okay. On to item 8, audit representation letter. Venture and Company Certified Public Accountant. We are ready for your report.
Do you want the audit report?
No, I'll just, prior to presenting the audit, the law requires that they provide us this representation letter that's simply stating what this, reiterating what the scope of their audit was, reiterating what it is that as an auditor, they did not perform for the district. And then this will be executed and will accompany the audit in their records. Next agenda item will actually present the audit itself. So this is more of like a housekeeping, if you will, item.
So we need an action item, so I guess we need a motion and a second on this as well. Director Kintosh.
Should I ask questions? I way laugh from.
Go ahead and ask question.
This is a letter that was prepared by Fector and me, but we're going to be sending it out under our names, right?
Correct. Effector has addressed it essentially.
But it's the sign.
Correct.
You address it, it should be addressed to me.
It is addressed, I'm sorry, it is addressed to you, executed by the board, and you're essentially, they're accepting the terms of the scope of your audit or reiterated.
To nitpick about a couple of things that I thought they would. The item 8 wording in the agenda says that the letter was dated January 13th. And the item in the sample letter that was given to us was dated January 28th. And the sample letter said that the time period is up through June 30 of 23. The rest of the correspondence it was really through 24 this year. All I'm going to ask from the staff is work through the dates and make sure you get the dates right when
The letter is correct, as dated January 28th, 2025. Date that the audit is through is June 30th, 2024. So we'll state that for the record, and anything that is conflicting will be corrected and reflected in the minutes.
Motion on.
I'd like to move that. I'd like to move for approval of item.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Allison?
Director Martinson,
Yes.
Director Kintosh,
yes.
Director Berg, Director Quillisi,
Yes.
Director Curtis,
Yes,
Jim.
Yes. Now we'll move on to item 9, fiscal year 2023-24 annual independent financial audit.
Yeah, so just give me a second because I got to share the presentation here, so. Ready? Yep. Okay, I guess I'm gonna stand up.
Not worried?
Not working from over here. Not working from here either.
Tree.
Okay, good. Can you even tell you? Did it sleep too long? No. Technology, great thing until it's not.
I'm gonna have to do it.
Okay, go ahead and click it. Thank you for having me. Timing worked out great because I was down here on another presentation, so I finally get to see you in person. Thank you. Few housekeeping things, next slide. What's an audit? It's basically us sharing responsibility for making sure the financial statements are fairly presented. Next slide. We're looking at the financial statements from a standpoint of, are they materially correct? Do they fairly present the results of operation and the financial position as of a point? We're not trying to find out if every dime is spent properly. We're not trying to find out if every dime is accounted for. We're looking at it from a materiality standpoint. Slide. Next slide. We're not, we're a watchdog, not a blood. Just want to keep that in mind as we're. Slide. What we're responsible for is forming an opinion based on the information that's presented, staff and management. We'll make sure that the financial statements are presented fairly in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. And hiring us is, hiring us as auditors doesn't relieve you of your responsibility for making sure the financial statements are fairly presented. So if, as you're looking at these financial statements, you see something that doesn't jive with what your understanding is, you need to tell us, because that's what we believe it is based on the information we've been provided at this time. Next slide, or next clip. Remember that I provide reasonable assurance, not absolute. My engagements asked me what it would cost for an audit that was absolute assurance. And I quoted $2.5 million at the time, because it would just be overly burdensome for us to do. The experts that we'd have to call, we'd have to look at would be great. I think I'm going to raise that fee next year so that nobody takes me up on it. Next one. Next. So you folks select the accounting principles, policies that we apply, measure, estimates. They're outlined in note 1. Next. You select the estimation methods. Good. Next one. And you implement a system of internal controls. You signing the checks tonight is part of that system of internal controls. You folks asking questions of board staff, management staff, the monthly meetings and the financial information, that's part of the internal control system. Having separation of powers, that's part of it. So you're responsible for making sure that those things are all implemented. Next. Difficulties encountered. This year we were a little bit slow in getting done with the sudden turnover that we had. There was some issues with changes in the system that meant that staff had to do additional work to actually get in and do the audit work. So don't see it as a problem. It would be a serious problem. But I think everything worked out well, and we were able to get all the information and get finished. No other significant items that we need to report that are really required to report as part of our recommendations. Next. So let's look at the actual financial statements now. Plain opinion, everything was materially stated properly, is that we were concerned about. Sure, our opinion. Next. The next section is the management's discussion analysis. And that's where you folks actually take information and add words to the numbers. Try to put them into context for the reader. We don't opine on the management's discussion analysis. We look at it and make sure that there's nothing that doesn't jive with the numbers. We don't actually do the audit of that portion. Next. Just some, here you can see that the cash position fluctuates, and the 23 numbers, that's when you were going through the repairs. You were down a little bit there. Next. Unrestricted investments, here you can see that that number has been decreasing, and that's directly related to the amount that you're spending on emergency repairs and the plant. Next. Restricted investments, that stays fairly consistent. Next. So there's your total cash. Go ahead and next one. So you can see that the percentage of total assets that's decreased, which between 23 and 24 is kind of what we expected. Since again, you spent a lot of money on fixed assets, so you changed it from assets to cash. Next. Change from prior. Next. Net capital assets. So this is the additions plus less any deviation that we've charged over the years. Next. Construction in progress. This is where the big numbers go. Next. Receivables, your taxes, interest, and customer. We aren't terribly concerned about having an allowance for these because they're either coming from taxes or interest, which we'll always collect, and the customer, those have the ability to be lean. So whether we get it this year or 5 years from now when the property is sold, get the money. Next. OPEB asset. This is the asset that's accumulated to fund your other post-employment benefits. Deferred outflows. So the deferred outflows are related to the pension. And you can think of it like prepaids, except it's not quite like that, but that's the basic concept. Those are related to the activities that happen in the pension after it's been measured by PERS. Next. Here's a list of the construction progress, and you can see from 22 to 24 the increase, and you can see where it's happening. And then the FEMA projects towards the bottom. Next. This year was a light year as far as direct purchase of fixed assets, primarily because you were spending your money on the projects. Next. Total liabilities. You're going to spend your money on a couple things: expenses, new assets, or you're going to pay down something. And here you can see that we've decreased. In 23, the number was so much bigger than the other 2 years because we've done all of the FEMA upgrades, FEMA work that was still sitting in payables. Current liabilities, next, that's payable and payroll. The revenue bond, you can see that that's steadily going away. For how many years? Yeah.
Still in there. Wow.
Yeah, it's still there for a while. Next. The pension liability. Your pension liability is remained fairly consistent. Some of our others have just been all over the place. So I would say that good job, but I don't think that anybody here had anything to do with it. Deferred inflows. This is the earnings activity that happens after the measurement date. The pension is unique in that it's measured next year, and then it gets rolled forward to this year. So these deferred inflows and outflows are things that occur after period of time. Some of them, because of the way that Gatsby wrote the law or the rules, get amortized over a period of time. So it's not all related to that measurement, that difference in the measurement. The biggest number that's part of that difference is the contribution that's made after 23. It's always a deferred inflow to the plan. Okay. Next. Next. This is the change in the total liabilities from year to year. Next. Operating revenues, very consistent across. Operating expenses. Something wrong with that connection. It should be about
With your operating expenses too.
Yeah,
2022.
yeah, yeah,
Sorry, Vaughn.
yeah. Yeah. Next. Go off of this one. So the federal reimbursement. So. 776 is correct. The other two numbers, I don't know what happened with the slides. My apologies for that. The federal reimbursement is a number that came in December when you got the check. So when you did the FEMA work, FEMA said, yeah, we'll pay for it, but they haven't really committed to paying for it. So we haven't recorded a receivable because we weren't sure that you were ever going to see any money. In December, you got 776, so we went ahead and accrued that as of the end of the year. That be dependent on whether money comes in for that FEMA reimbursement, if any. Have you heard anything more on that?
I don't think we have any other obligated funds, so we are not anticipating anything in the next probably 4 months.
No. And with that, we can either, when you do finally get that, you can evaluate 24 and see if you want to prior period adjustment to put it back in there and bring it into the current year.
I did. Yearly dates up there. Those June 30th or those December 31st?
June.
Because we operate on a July fiscal year.
July 1st to June 30th.
Correct.
And that 776,000 certainly didn't arrive in December of 23. This is an audit through
No.
last June 30th, right?
Correct. Has you had earned that money as of June 30th? Done all the work.
We're doing accruals, not cash.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah, and your books are on an accrual basis.
But the FEMA stuff, that go through the same double cycle as congressional money, that is budgeted or authorized, and then it's later appropriated?
I don't.
Paid? I'm trying to understand why reimbursement, if we have put in real, authentic, certified requests for money from FEMA, it's certainly for more than that. We're doing accruals, why don't the other numbers show up there?
As the collectability, the ultimate realization of those is in doubt.
We don't know, they don't obligate any funds whatsoever to us until they actually, what they call obligate the project, which means that they've done their full review and they state exactly what dollar for dollar ratio they're going to reimburse based on that specific structured project. And their identifier as far as project is different than we would identify as a project.
Okay. 776,000 is credited to our account for the year ending last June 30th, though the money was actually received 6 months later.
For reimbursement for expenses that took place in
That year.
July 23 to June.
Those are only the recognized or authorized expenses.
Ones that they determined that they would.
Okay,
It's an offset basically to our current costs in that
Okay.
period.
I agree with your sentiments. If they had actually committed the funding, we would have accrued the entire amount. Because they have yet to issue anything that says, yes, we are going to do this in writing.
I recognize obligating is different from paying.
Have been prior years where we received additional FEMA money after the audit and after the year was closed, and we reported it as miscellaneous income, basically, in the current year that it was received. If there was no, we had no receivable, so we didn't know it was coming. So they have done that to us in the past. They've taken a long time to close a project, and it's thought we weren't getting it. So we've recorded FEMA money before, but we've recorded FEMA money in the past, where sometimes we just get presents from them. But it really was to true up something that took place prior, and it's that period. We have to
Okay.
put it up in the current year.
Question for staff then. If the 776 is money that was obligated by FEMA in that fiscal year, paid in the subsequent fiscal year, fine. What's the 5.7 million for the two prior years?
23 and the 22 numbers, there's something wrong with the slide.
Okay,
Apologies for that.
all right.
That was just,
So
yeah.
I understood the explanation of what you were doing and why. I'm wondering, would we have done it in a different way? And the reason I'm asking, you did our 24-25 budget.
Yes, I think actually.
We set that to 0. That gave us a calculated shortfall of 5% in our budget. So we went out and asked for a rate, knowing that this money was potentially going to come in. Probably some of it for sure would come in. So had we known that we were going to get that for sure, we would not have been able to justify the rate increase imposed on our ratepayers. So is there like right now, we're still outstanding roughly $3.5 million that we applied for those events? You said certainty. Can't do anything with it because it's not a certainty. Is there some accounting principle that would say, well, you can say 15% of it you're likely to get or something like that?
If there was an amount, we have is there's no actual commitment from them to.
So there has to be, we can't assume under account receivables or something, you're going to get some portion.
Writing it off then,
Yeah.
right, when you don't get it, and then that does another shift of the direction for you. So you're putting.
You see, the practical outcome is we went for a rate increase when we didn't need to. So that's what. Why
There's another agency in the area that same event had money come in for the repairs. Had a grant agreement that said, here's how much we're going to pay you for an up to this amount. It's easy. Have that.
You had the letter in there.
Yeah.
Okay.
We always ask for a number. I go to Allison at the, say, where do we go? Do you know anything? Is there any number that I can use to report? Because I want to put it on the books if I have it as well, because when he comes to look for it, he's going to say, you forgot to approve that, and it's material, usually, financial statements. In this case, we had no idea that money was coming, and we were in the process. He had already had a draft started, and I called him and said, we just got a whole bunch of money and it belongs to last year. We need to open it back up and record that, which is why we had to shift it so we could redo. But it was big enough. It was too big. Money that comes in, it's just too material sometimes to just say it's not $5,000.
You don't audit our budget processes, but it would be outside of any kind of standard if we were to assume in our budget that we were going to get some percentage of that.
You
That's up to us, right?
Budget, you can do whatever you want.
That's what I needed.
Yeah, the budget process is to say, here's what we know we're get. Know you're going to get your rate, your normal rates. Here's something that happened. We think we're going to get this. that's how we're going to use it. That also allows you to say, we think we're going to get this, but we aren't going to spend this until we get that.
It's all an estimate, though. Your whole budget's an estimate.
You know it to precise detail, down to the penny.
Fantastic.
There was one boss I worked for said, you can never budget right, you can only do it often. It is, it's always an estimate.
It's a swag.
Okay, well, thank you.
Thanks, Scott. Thanks, Shirley.
Go ahead, next slide. Next. And next. I wanted to get off that slide since obviously something.
Something like that.
Yeah,
Scott, can you do a corrected slideshow so I can put it in that,
Yeah.
my minutes accurately?
I'll get that up to you tomorrow.
So, ask another. So on page 8 of your thing, letter to, I guess it is, management's discussion and analysis. The last line on that page says there was no increase in the service charge included in this budget. We actually did have a 5% increase. You know,
So we're doing fiscal year ending 2020, so that would be prior year.
5, yeah.
So.
That's what he said on April 29th, 24. Board adopted a one-year budget, which.
Right. That's not the
year we're
that was just
auditing.
audited.
Yeah,
I know it's not the year we audited.
what he's talking about is in the management's discussion
This is big.
analysis, the last paragraph.
Should we
It's
just
co-
refer to the 23-24?
No,
Fiscal year?
that's what you want to, in 24-5, is there going to be an increase? Change that so that there's a increase.
Doesn't affect anything you've done.
No, it's just fixing that so that it's correct. That's a constant issue with, you're in 25, auditing 24, looking at 23. What's this year, what's last year? So. Anything else?
Questions?
I have any more of a comment. Here, when we do these audits, always skimming the cover letters, trying to look for wording like clean audit. Good job with the auditor. Usually during the presentation, you know, give a nod saying, yeah, you basically got a clean audit. But I read something in the letter, it's on page, letter on page 37 of the PDF. 38. It says, we experienced some significant difficulty in performing and completing our audit due to internal staff. And you talked about that during your presentation today. You kind of downplayed it a little bit, saying, no problem, everything worked out. I would like to hear from Scott or Allison. Is there anything we need to be concerned about as far as not having an adequate staff to do this for accounting and our audit? Or was that just a one-shot deal that happened, or is it something that's going to be fixed and resolved?
So it was before my time. I have asked Allison, but I think Allison would be the person because I think she knows more than.
So we had, staff, we had a significant staff turnover in a short amount of time, one of them being a very seasoned accounting staff, left our district. And so there was a transfer of knowledge that was definitely lost in that exit. And you probably saw in your board packets in subsequent months that the financial statements were always at least an extra 30 days behind. That is representative of essentially the pace in which staff was working. The highlight as far as that is that give staff so an opportunity to transition some of our systems, our payroll system and everything like that, as we sort of hope to do in a future state, while we were sort of learning the accounting process. It gave us the opportunity to change some things. So we took the time to essentially establish some more efficiency standards and outsource our payroll, which did cause some delays also. Now you're working with systems and figuring out how to sort of transfer information, get the recording and all of that. So some of it was some of our own doing as well, given the opportunity and time, knowing that that would cause a little bit of sort of friction getting caught up for our audit. And some of it was completely out of our control as far as when, when seasoned staff exits and you have to train new staff. Kudos to Shailene for definitely, stepping up and helping train our new accounting hire and transferring as much as she knew about her routine over the years with our staff accounting person. And we're completely caught up now. And so I think we've established our new accounting processes in those areas. I don't foresee any sort of an issue going forward at all. But I freely admit it was rough going, sort of learning exactly, how everything went. I don't foresee any issue. I don't think it was a staff capacity issue, more than it was just trying to stay, caught up. Also will say that definitely sort of our FEMA projects, took staff levels in a sort of a priority area where, you're arranging contracts and vendors and paying quickly and all those sorts of things. Definitely took a front seat to a lot of our less acute accounting things. And so it's doing more with the same amount of staff. And that's always going to impact sort of your productivity as well. But I'm happy to report we're completely caught up. We closed out our audit, on a positive note. I think we're in a good routine now. Definitely wasn't the case at one time.
Thank you for an excellent. One last question from Scott. Was it a clean audit?
Yeah. Yeah.
Said a clean opinion.
My opinion. The only pages in this whole report that are mine, the three that say independent auditors report. Everything else there is yours. My 3 pages say what I think about the other pages. And it says, we didn't see anything clearly stated in accordance with GAAP. Which is a clean opinion.
Director Quillisi.
I have this is not for the auditors, although later, story is interesting stuff is always in the notes. I've got some questions about the notes. I did have some questions about the management discussion and analysis, and I guess that's for the general manager and the staff. Yeah. Starting on page 47 of the packet, page 5 of the report, this is NDNA. Table 1, is there any increase in long-term assets besides the TMDL? Just in general, I'm not looking for.
That was the slide. Yeah. So there's the TMDL, 2 FEMAs, and then
I see, okay, the foster stuff is construction, all right.
Okay.
All right. The next page, table 2, there's a 49% increase in non-operational revenue. Is that from investments? I thought our investment income was coming down because interest rates were coming down and all of that. So I'm just wondering where that came from. Then a 78% increase in non-operational expenses. The numbers are there, but I don't understand why they're there. This is in table 2 of the MD&A.
As the numbers are $100,000 numbers, but because those numbers are so small, change in them is a big impact.
Okay.
So we went from 164,000 in 23 292,000 in 24 in operating expenses. So it makes the percentage look odd.
But the majority of that number is the disposals. We had some
Yeah.
gains or losses on disposals, and that goes under that non-all.
I did have a question about that because it comes up in note 4 of one of your tables. What are the collection system and treatment plant disposals?
There was the series of parts that were on there.
Like losses in the military?
Have what we call a depreciation schedule, and it's pages long, and we do it by location. So we have the assets that are in the collection system, we have assets that are at the treatment plant, we have assets that are here, we have vehicles, lift stations, they're all.
I understand depreciation and amortization. Is that what the disposals are?
So we do try to do a thorough, like mini inventory of the assets, and we asked all of the managers basically to take a look at their areas and tell us whether or not there were things that were just really, really old that we couldn't identify or find, that probably were scrapped, fully depreciated some of them, and some of them we've replaced them because we had to, and they had some life left. That's what that change is going to be. 146,000 is on the books.
Okay. In one of your tables, this is on page 60. Oh, first of all, there's a $440,000 decrease in user charges. Is that all from DFA or are there other things?
All going to be from that facility, whether it's whether it's DFA lost revenue because they're no longer business, or it's
Under whatever name?
yes, or if it's a liquid account of Pepsi that have normally been paying revenue. So yes, it is all from that facility.
Okay. On page 65, I'm not sure. It's into the audit. So. There is a table.
The investment descriptions.
Right. Somewhere in there, it says agency's money, commercial paper limits. Don't understand what agency's money is, especially since if you go to page 112, it says 25%, not agency's money. So I'm confused.
Those need to be changed to the 25% to be consistent with that other page you were looking at.
Okay.
Yeah.
So those two you changed to 25%.
So the nomenclature of agency's money.
The only thing I can think of is get 2 pages selected and type something.
Okay. Last, I think, note 11 is on page 84.
Yeah.
It's really true. All the really interesting stuff is in the note. There is a discussion there of January of 23. There was damage to the system and construction and all of that. There is no mention of January of 24. I'm wondering why, because that's part of the year it's under audit. We had another FEMA construction thing.
What was,
But it's
what was that?
185K.
That was 185K, and what was it called?
Foster Park, that's.
Okay. So that one, the size, we just didn't break it out separately.
Combined
We
in
don't
the
have commitment that we'll get them.
not at all.
So it's not under federal aid
Yeah.
because we have
Oh,
to approve
yeah.
it,
Okay.
but it possibly could show up next year.
Also a reminder that we had obligated funds that we received in October here. So even when you get funds obligated, it's set with. Will it be this fiscal?
Obligated isn't the same as cash. Understand? I dealt with Congress for years.
Sorry.
Yes. Yes. That's it. Thank you very much.
We need a motion.
I'll move approval of item 9A through C.
Second.
Motion is second. Allison, would you call roll, please?
Director Martinson,
Yes.
Tosh,
Yes.
Bird,
Yes.
Director Quillisi,
Yes.
Director Bowman, Director Curtis,
Yes,
and Chair Stone.
Yes. Scott, Shaving.
Thank
You.
Safe travels.
Thank you.
Please thank your staff for us.
To item 10, Little Santa Ana lift station improvements, and I believe we've got people going to give us a presentation.
I remember that. I'll introduce Israel real quick. This is Israel. This presentation started with a all hands meeting that we had in the fourth quarter of 2024. And Israel knocked it out of the park. And so we're like, hey, this will be great to give to the board. So here's the second opportunity.
So hello, good evening all. For all who don't know me, my name is Israel. I'm the lead collection worker here at the district. So we'll be talking about Santa Ana lift station number 2, or we call it Little Santa Ana. So this project started, it's been in the making for the last, we got the approval from the board at the beginning of the year, January of 2024, but it's actually been going a little bit further than that. And it all started when, I believe at the year 2021, we tried to get pumps. So a little history on it. The pumps that are there right now, they're single phase. We tried to order another pump, and it took us about 1.5 years till Oilfield Electric told us that, you know what, we can't get this pump no more. They don't make it because it's single phase. All the pumps now are going to 3-phase. So we had to go with another company that said that they could actually get us the pump within 3 months, which was a lie because they did the exact same thing. They could not get us the pump. So we got with Gorman Rupp and told us that we could, they couldn't get a single phase, but they could get us a 3-phase. So talking with Gorman Rupp, in order for us to do that, because that station's only single phase, we would have to get a VFD that would get single phase power and they would convert it to a 3-phase. So that's what we did. We got an approval from the board last year. We received the pumps in May, and we did this operation in October. So in October, we started. Now, unlike other utilities, we can't just tell the people that, hey, we're shutting off the utilities. So we had to come in early in the morning to actually set up a bypass. We turned off the power. The manhole right there, it's actually the inlet into the wet well. So what we did is we plugged the downstream inlet into the wet well, and we pretty much made that a wet well. And what they're doing right there is they're setting up the pump, putting hoses. So what we're doing there is we're going to be vacuuming like if it was a wet well, while the Taft Electric was working on our electrical to shut down the station and eventually us pull out the pumps. So this is the crew right here. They're setting up the discharge into a pig port. And this is where we actually pig the line, the force main. And that's pretty much how we clean the force main. But we made a little adapter where we could actually connect our 4-inch hoses. And now pretty much we're hooking up to the force main. The picture before that at the manhole with the wet well, that's where we're sucking from, pushing it there, while Taft Electric is doing their shutting down the power. We're removing all the internals of the panel. There's a crew right there. We're pulling the pumps out. You can see kind of where the hoses at the bottom where we're discharging and bypassing the whole station. So the whole station right now is getting bypassed. There is no flow going into the station. You can see on the slide on the right how they're pulling it out. So all these right here, it doesn't have rigid set piping. It's all on flexible suction hose. So that's what we're doing right now, pulling out the pump. And that's the pump on the left. That's your Wemco pump. That's your single phase pump that we're removing. And then the one on the right is our Gorman Rupp pump, which is a 3-phase. The reason we went with Gorman Rupp, we have Gorman Rupp pumps at Orchard Lift Station. And eventually we want to make a uniform where all of our lift stations have Gorman Rupp. It makes it easier to get parts whenever we could be interchangeable. That way we're not keeping a big list of different variety of pumps. The only other lift station that has a different pump is Santa Ana #1, which has hydrostall pumps. But eventually, Santa Ana #2 and Rancho Matelaha, they're identical in every sense. So in the future, we want to also get Rancho Matelaha, this type of setup. And there's the crew putting in, again, they're, like I said before, the discharge piping is not rigid, so it's a little bit of playing with it. We got to lower it in. See on the right, that's where they actually attach to the force main right there. So take a little bit of playing. You don't want too much sag on the hoses where it's going to give you a little bit more of a head pressure. So we just want a little bit of slack. So there's the crew right there adjusting the discharge hoses. And there's Taft Electric working on installing the VFDs. Also, another good thing about some of the VFD, with the single phase, they're pretty much on off. So when they're on, they're going 100%. With the VFD now, it takes about 10 seconds where they ramp up slowly and eventually they get to 100%. So it's helping out with the impeller and the shaft. So it's just not going at 100%. And that's those two little VFDs right there that are lit green. So before that, it was just a flat panel. Before the VFDs were installed with the single phase pumps, if we ever had a pump that tripped, we would have to open up the panel, get into the panel, and physically reset the panel, reset the pump with the breaker. With this now, it's a little bit safer. We don't have to open up the panel. If for whatever reason these VFDs were to trip or the pump were to trip, there's an external bind on the outside where we just push, and it resets the pump. And that's a little bit closer. They go all the way to 60 hertz. Right now, we're running on around 50 hertz. There's Dan from Taft Electric programming the VFDs for the new pumps. And there it is. After the pumps are in, they're pumping at 216. Now, with the old single phase pumps, on a good day, with both of them pumping, we would get maybe 140 to 150 with both of them. Now with both pumps, we're getting 216. So with one pump at 60 hertz, it's actually pumping at about 160 GPM. So we have to lower the hertz to about 50. At 50, it pumps at about 125 GPM. And the reason we wanted to pump lower is when we put them in, it would just suck the well quick. What we don't want is on and off, on and off. These pumps actually work better, more of a long distance, meaning running instead of on off. So we lowered the hertz to 50. But on a storm event, if we were to ever need them, we could ramp them up by another 10 hertz, which would give us the 216 on both.
Is that done automatically, or do you have to go out and do that?
You know, we have to physically go on there. This is pretty much phase one of probably another 3 or 4 phases of upgrading this lift station. It also has an older panel. So this panel is pretty much Frankenstein out kind of a deal. A lot of pieces here and there. Again, we're still getting single phase power. Eventually, there's in the future, we want to get 3-phase power with Edison, where we don't need the actual VFD to control the single phase input to a 3-phase. It actually works a little bit better also. It's kind of at times, sometimes you got to mess with it because it's just not true 3-phase power. So just for example, during the storm events, we were pumping with both pumps 150. That station wasn't keeping up, even though it's only, we were getting about 165 to 170 gallons per minute coming into the station. That much amount was enough to pretty much our station not be able to keep up with the flow. So adding these 2 pumps, being able to pump at 216 GPM helps a lot. And that's the finished product when both pumps are in. Again, going back to the hoses, this is kind of like how we want them. A little bit of slag, but not too much, gives us the right enough head for the pumps. So it's a pretty deep wet well also. But again, this is just phase one of many. Also, the old single phase pumps, they would operate at about 22 amps. These new 3-phase pumps, they operate at about 8 amps, full operational. So we should see a little bit of a lower bill per Edison. So they're very, very efficient just because of the whole single phase to 3-phase. They're very, very efficient pumps. And ever since we put them in October, they've been really, really great pumps. We haven't had no really major issues with them. Again, eventually phase 2, we want to upgrade the panel with the 3-phase with Edison. Eventually, we want to, there was talks in the past that Casitas, the Lake Casitas, eventually would want to put a force main in Santa Ana. So we're talking about also buying a little bit more property to make the wet well bigger. We're not sure where Lake Casitas is at with that yet, but for sure we want to upgrade the panel and get the 3-phase in. Eventually burst our old force main. Right now the force main is a 4-inch. We want to go at least a 6-inch. Again, we do have issues when it rains because we're just pushing so much water into Big Santa Ana or Santa Ana number 1 that it's going to take us some time to eventually. But this was phase 1. We don't have to worry about getting pumps now because wow, the old pumps that we took from there are now backups for Rancho. We have 2 extra spare pumps now. So we buy a little bit of time, but eventually we want to make it uniform and get all Gorman pumps. And again, this is all because you guys approved this. You guys gave us the power, and this is your approval at work.
Get the easy one. So I have an operational question. I think what you told me is that if you're getting more inflow, a storm or whatever, someone has to go out and adjust the pump frequency to cause it to lift more fluid.
Well,
so how does someone know that it's not keeping up?
We have a SCADA system. Eventually,
it's watching the level,
and we have redundancy. So we have the Vega radar that is keeping track of that. And at a certain point, these pumps kick on at 4 feet, and the lag will kick on at 4.2. We'll get an alarm for the lag saying, "Hey, the lag pump kicked on. It's not keeping up." The next alarm is going to be at 4.8. Hey, now you're a high. Both of these pumps are running. They're not keeping up. So at that point, even if we get a lag, it's kind of like get over there, see what's going on, because the last thing we want to do is wait till we get to the high. Then we have very, very minimal time to go. But even before a storm, if we know a storm's coming, we're just going to ramp them up 100%. Yeah, 100%. We also have a bypass trailer pump that the board approved. That pump, if we could actually hook up to those ports, we'll just use our bypass diesel trailer pump. We want to use those pumps, and that could pump up to 300 GPM. Now, we don't want to do that because that puts a lot of stress on our force main. But if we have to, we would, because eventually we've seen in the last storm events where this lift station backed up all the way to the corner market or the gravity lines because it wasn't keeping up. There was just too much flow coming in.
I was going to ask because I remember 2 or 3 years ago, that whole area flooded.
Yeah.
I was wondering if this starts to get behind and you physically can't get to it, how would it ramp up? Nobody can adjust it. But what you're saying is it's somewhat automated.
Yes. Yes.
That gives me more confidence.
Also, that area was, we did a couple of private PSLs, private sewer lateral inspection, and at the corner of Burnham and Santa Ana, like a little trailer park on the corner right across the street. Their whole system was pretty much in pieces. So all the inflow water, all the groundwater was pretty much seeping in through there and going into our well. And that was the cause of since then, they replaced all their system. I inspected it all. It's all ABS now. It's all PVC. So I'm kind of curious to see the next one, how we do.
Yeah.
Questions, please? The VFD elections are is the sanitary district governed by any efficiency level that the state of California?
No, we're not, on an emergency, anything, it's get it going.
With regard to the pump
Yeah.
selection?
With the pumps, no, the only thing that we're restricted with California is with our generators, with the air pollution control. Other than that, even in an emergency, so with our backup generators, we can only run them, we can only service them for 20 hours a year. But in an emergency, they can run nonstop. That's the only thing that they regulate us on right now.
Once again, with the VFD, are you regulating the cycles?
Yeah.
Cycles changing from 60 to 50 to 40?
No, so it's pretty much at 50 hertz right now. Right now, when it's dry weather, it's 50 hertz because it's just, they're pumping efficiently right now. It's not taking a little bit longer. An average pump cycle will last about 3 minutes.
So what is it that changes the speed? Is the sine wave
Yes,
modified?
yes,
The top off of the bottom?
exactly. Yes, 100%, yeah. That's what it is.
The other thing is the life of these new pumps that are being controlled by the VFD. You expecting them to live longer? It's a soft start.
Yes. Yeah, so we're expecting them because it takes 10 seconds for them to start, so they ramp up slowly, and then they get to 100%. A lot of these other, when we had to rebuild the old single phase pumps, just because it's like an on-off switch. Turn it on, it's 100%. Sometimes they would snap the shaft, or when they would do maintenance and they'd get ragged up, sometimes we do it called the back flush, where we open up the check valve and it's pretty much going backwards and it's pretty much spinning backwards. So when we would release the check valve, we would wait to 100% come to a stop. Obviously, sometimes they didn't come to us, they were still spinning backwards. So when you would turn them on, they would just kick on at 100%, snap the shaft. So with this VFDs now, they start up slowly. Even when they start up slowly, if they're still spinning backwards, it'll bring them to a stop and then start going the other way. Another feature these pumps have, if for whatever reason, if it gets ragged up and it increases the amps, it would actually stop and spin backwards and try to spit out the rag, and then try to go again. So.
Very good.
Thank you.
Report, what's your next one gonna be on?
Probably the new Gatbacks. So,
Israel. And I guess we have no action on that. Move on to item 11.
I'm glad you had him come in and show us that. That was good.
Yeah.
Water treatment plant filter upgrade nitrate reduction project engineering services during startup budget adjustment number 2025-16.
Yes, thank you. What's here in front of you is, for your consideration, is a proposal for $49,300 for Stantec. Stantec was the engineer on the TMDL project. We're looking for assistance on startup down there. We came online with it a few months ago. We had some foaming issues. We reached out to see who is the manufacturer of proprietary carbon source, and we kind of hit our capabilities, and we're looking for Stantec, who is the design engineer and the design engineer for the DMDL project, to help us help ourselves. And that's what this is for your consideration. So it's a proposal for them to come on board and give us extra services to help us start this facility.
So we still don't know what's causing that foaming.
We do not. So we have a couple ideas. The experts have looked into it. I think they're still kicking around the idea that it's probably a protein of some sort, but they don't know. It's not nearly as bad as what it is. Operations crew has been making some improvements down there, but I think we are still looking for some help from the experts. So it's $49,300 for Stantec to do it, and it would require a budget adjustment.
So how long does this last? Are we there for now till the end of time at 49,000, or is this a?
No, this is a one-time deal. I think we had it for 10 weeks. I'd have to go back. Yeah, it was a 10-week proposal for them to do the work. It does not include analysis. So really what they're going to probably be doing is coming in, taking a look at making some suggestions for analysis. We are going to have to run the analysis at our cost. So that doesn't include any of their analysis cost. Based on the analysis that comes back, they would take a look at it, their scientists, their engineers, and they get back to us. So going back to Director Martinson's question, it's about 10 weeks for that 49,300 dollars.
And on call to help us when we need them, is that the idea?
Yeah, and if it's not gonna, if they solve the problem on day one, we're done. Yeah, we're not gonna burn up all 49,300 bucks. No. It's like.
Can I just say one thing? In addition to looking into the foaming issue, which is kind of a mild issue, it's light, it's body. Something we need to look into and kind of identify the cause. We started these new filters and we go back into denitrification mode on these new tertiary filters, which we're in denitrification mode now. When we go into startup and we start removing our nitrates again, we might need a little bit of assistance or a little bit of guidance to kind of put all our heads together on the different scenarios as it relates to different dose rates and things like that with our micro C, what's too much, what's not enough, what's optimum. And so we'll be looking for a little bit of assistance there too, so that this will actually tie into that part as well. So it's not just a foam thing, it's actual denitrification filter startup assistance.
Yeah, I got the impression from reading this, and I may be wrong, that this was tied to a previous project, or is it just easier to change order to existing contract? The 200,000 that they started, is that work all finished, and then 29,000 for future work?
Yes.
200,000 not finished.
The 200,000.
Why we can add on to it?
200,000 is complete. So 200,000 was their contract for the design of the team. And they're the experts. I don't think it would be prudent to bring in a second engineer. I think they're the experts on
just that.
Yeah. And so this would be an extra 49,000 on top of their 200,000 that they already did.
This is all for future work.
Yes, all for future work.
I have a comment. Seeing the proposal by Stantec that they're basing their estimate on 4 site visits. Doesn't seem like a lot of site visits. Well, I didn't know some more site visits.
Questions? Second.
Adopt, change order for
From 11A and B. Seconded.
Awesome. Second.
Director Martinson,
Yes.
Director Kentosh, Director Berg,
Yes.
Director Swayze,
Yes.
Director Ulrich, Director Curtis,
Yes.
Chair Stone.
Yes.
Thank you. All right, now we'll move on to item 12, fiscal year 2025-26 budget preparation schedule.
Yes, this is a very exciting and frankly very important time of the year to do the budget. What we have here for your consideration are the dates that Allison and I have looked at that would work for the district, right? So what we did is we started knowing that we have to have our submittals to the county for the assessor's office and working backwards to get here, including any time that we would need to have for a Prop 218 notice if indeed there was a rate increase. So that's the schedule that's here in front of you for your consideration. Start out on March 24th. At a March board meeting, we'd have a separate special meeting on April 21st. There would be another special meeting on April 23rd. A regular meeting for the final budget adoption would be on April 28th. If there was an approval of a rate increase, then it will allow a Prop 218 letter to go out. I worked with Dennis this meets the requirements for Prop 218 notifications for a second notice that we would have to do. And then you'd have the second reading on the 16th, and we'd make it for that July 1st deadline for the assessor.
We're gonna have enough time. This is gotta be the way it's gotta be because it's gotta work back. Are you guys gonna have enough time to get this set up and get the finance involved? For this before?
The answer is, I think so, if we can start the finance committee. So it's another agenda item in here. The answer is, I think so, if we can start the finance committee on February 10th. It's the week of February 10th.
Finance, the one thing that I'll put in is that generally, not super to create a draft budget using anything prior to, it's ideal to use the most recent numbers possible, which we generally use those of the month of February has been, that will generally capture any of our large annual payments as well. And you're going to want to capture as many as you can when you evaluate each operating line item. So sometimes starting your budget too early becomes inaccurate. And so that wouldn't be recommended. Finance committee, ideal if there was discussion around direction of how the budget to be prepped or presented. There won't really be any hardcore numbers to review in advance. So it takes a long time to compile those numbers, and it's to get it done by meeting. So it'll be likely essentially historical knowledge of how the budget was prepared and the things that maybe finance committee would like to recommend emphasis on or more on for evaluation prior to versus reviewing the budget at an earlier date.
I personally would rather have the finance committee preview it at an earlier date. But date would be is a question in my mind, because it looks to me like what Allison's saying is February 10th is way too early. February, March 24th. Right, but finance committee could see it sometime around the 10th of March. The mid-March, 10 days before the meeting.
We'll close our books for the month of February, really no sooner than like March 12th. So the books have to actually be closed, and that's dependent on Shailene's. So we usually don't get our final statements until the 10th of the month. So we do it shortly thereafter. The only caveat, so I can use January numbers to compile the budget. It's just that once February is closed, can't go back and redo the budget because that's a complete redo. The budget. So if we want to use January as far as closures and have more projections, we can certainly do that. It's just that we go back and redo the budget for February. I won't have time to do that. So if you want it sooner, we can definitely use January and just know that there's to be some recurring expenses or something, and so there'll be more projections, if you will, estimations. You're less through the further through the fiscal year that you're using as your basis, if that makes sense. But I'm fine either way. I can do my best to present it to a committee. I know that I can make it by February 10th committee. It takes me weeks and weeks and weeks.
I'm more thinking first 12th of March, 8th of March, something.
That would be January data.
You can see it sometime before the meeting on the 24th, sometime around
Monday, the 17th.
March 17th. That's fine with me. Something like that, just because I was extremely unhappy with how it was done last year, as you know. So I want to see it before it goes to the full board.
I recall, though, some of your concerns had to do with philosophical discussions, like how much should we keep on?
No, that was my problem was when we move money around, magically it creates exactly a 5% shortfall. As we just learned tonight, we got as an increase was about 5%, which is around year, 100,000 a year more, we could not have justified a budget increase had we known that number was coming. We got 778. So I just want to make sure that we're not just moving money around to make it look like we have a shortfall like we did last year.
We might be moving out of the purview of what we want to do here. So I think if we do something in February for direction, and then you guys can have something. So it still makes it.
Who else is on the finance committee? Who's on the finance committee?
Nick, item 15.
Got to that part of the agenda.
Yeah, okay.
Anyway, we need a motion.
And I'll second, I think, the addition of that finance committee.
Motion a second, Allison.
Dr. Martinson,
Yes.
Director Kintosh,
Yes.
Director Berg,
Yes.
Director Quillisi,
Yes.
Director Ulrich,
Yes.
Director Curtis,
Yeah,
Chair Stone.
Yes.
All right. Moving on to item 13, annual investment policy resolution number 2025-01.
For your consideration is is the contract for PFM Asset Management. They're the group that does the asset management of our cash that we have, or investments, I should say. And so for your consideration is either a 1 year, is this 1 year?
No, so-
Is it 5 year? Because the last one was 5 years, but I looked at it terms.
So this is actually just the adoption of the annual investment policy as required by law. So every year, the board is required to review their investment policy. I want to highlight that an investment policy versus an investment strategy are two different things. And so I know the board has requested that the investment strategy be reviewed, which it will be in the very soon coming weeks once the committees are established. This is purely adopting essentially an investment policy, which basically reiterates prudent investment standards, the sort of book of code that you're required to invest by as a public agency.
State law.
Correct, and all of those are then managed by PFM to make sure that they're compliant. So if you change your investment strategies at subsequent, finance committee meetings and give directive to PFM, it does not change this investment policy at all. Lets you completely decide to change the policy in its entirety, which is basically say that you're not going to comply with state law and you guys want to rodeo around with your investment, which I don't see you doing. So this is purely a legal requirement for a housekeeping, just to say that you're complying and saying that you still intend to invest by prudent investment standards and all the applicable laws.
Nothing has changed from the prior time we approved this. So
No, this is reviewed every year prior to presenting to the board by PFM, and their memo is attached saying that they've reviewed it, and then any updates to the Exhibit A are reflected and changed accordingly, and there were no changes this year.
Other questions for staff? Further questions for staff? Entertain a motion in a second.
motion to approve.
Second that.
This is 13A.
Okay, Allison, call the roll, please.
Director Martinson,
Yes.
Director Kintosh,
Yes.
Director Berg, Director Quillisi,
Yes.
Director Ulrich,
Yes.
Director Curtis,
yeah,
and Chair Stone.
Yes. Okay, item 14, signature authorizations, Bank of Sierra. Authorize staff to proceed with signature authority on all three accounts.
Yes, that's three accounts. So it would be removing the former general manager, Jeff Palmer, adding me if I'm adding me as the general manager, and adding board of directors accordingly.
All on one sheet, and that's why everyone has to sign it again.
Yeah, our bank actually requires that we do the signature card anytime we make changes, so we're not allowed to just request that people be removed or added. And they require that the entire thing be redone for each and every account. So once we submit all the information, I think some of you have signed and completed the information sheets that I provided, they'll type of actual signature cards, their version of a signature card, and I'll request that you all sign it. I'll also be having the minutes from this particular meeting, authorizing motion certified for, and that will come.
Approval of 14A through C.
Second. Motion and. Allison, call.
Director Martinson,
Yes.
Director Kentosh,
Yes.
Berg,
Yes.
Director Quillisi,
Yes.
Director Ulrich,
Yes.
Director Curtis,
Yes,
Director and Chair Stone.
Yes.
On to item 15, appointment of board committees and representatives. Bring my, that one.
It should be 120. Retype. Do you want a copy of it?
Okay, I've got it right here. Just didn't go down far. Okay, this is where we wound up, gentlemen. Finance committee is Randy Berg, Steve Posey, and Lowell Marks. Personnel committee is James, William Ulrich. Ordinance and public relations is William Ulrich, Stone. Sequel review is James Kintosh, Martinson, and Berg. Tried to give Mr. Quillisi a break because last year he was on every committee, I think. I think I might have overloaded Randy Berg on, but see how he does.
Bill, no more vacations. You're on committees.
Yeah. Committees. And then I think the stuff stayed the same. It's the two I didn't review was our actual committees that we got. The survey committee and the general manager hiring, that committee, I think that would probably do away with that one.
I think our other one's probably like it's a task-based thing, so I don't know that it really needs to be renewed annually. If Dennis was here, we could ask him, but we keep it the same.
Yeah, I think we'll just leave the boy, I know there's one last thing we need to go through with Hoover Cassidy, so I'd like to keep the same people. We general manager hiring, I think. So that is it. We need to. Because we don't need a motion.
No,
This is entirely your decision.
All right. On to item 16, State of California Septic to Sewer Program Disadvantage Committee.
Yes, so I submitted the applications that I was directed to previously for Casitas Springs. The state employee took a look at it. There was some considerations that he had regarding the dollar value of the engineering design for it. And he and I also discussed the fact that Highway 33 bifurcates Casitas Springs. And he realized that Caltrans, the owner of Highway 33, could really create vast disparity between the east side of things and the west side of things. And his suggestion was that we break up that project into two projects. And that's what's for your consideration right here. It would be East Casitas Springs and a West Casitas Springs. The reality is our trunk line runs down the west side. And if they were to grant forward, we could actually move forward relatively quickly without having to involve Caltrans whatsoever. The other side, it's further away. You have to deal with Caltrans. It is more complicated. And the advantage that it allows for us is there are some line items that they have that are fixed maximum cost for, like, for instance, engineering design. And if you were to break it up into two projects, conceivably you would have almost twice the engineering design available for the overall Casita Springs. So what for your consideration here is the resolutions kind of amending it so we'd have an East Casita Springs and West Casita Springs.
Thought that we already had customers in both of those areas.
We do have customers in that. This would be a grant that would allow other customers in those areas to come. There are some
This
customers
is the $125,000
per person. Yes.
You said the trunk line on the west side of the highway,
Yes.
is it deep enough that you don't have to mess up the road connecting anybody from the east side? Or are those connections already in place? It's just a matter of tying into something that exists on the east side already.
I think the answer is probably a little bit of both. I think there's probably some people that are on the west side that we could tie in. I think you're going to need an engineering design to take a look at some other ones, and I think you're going to need to have engineering designs to really look on the east side. I think preliminarily for me to give you that, too far out.
With the road means you're messing with Caltrans.
And I'm sure there's storm drains in there that I don't know about.
Let's hold us in there somewhere.
And there's a Casitas, may have a water line through there. So, yeah, I think it would be prudent to break it up into two projects because you really could.
Questions? Motion in a second. A second, Allison, would you?
Okay. Director Martinson?
Yes.
Director Kentosh?
Yes.
Director Byrd? Yes. Director Flossie?
Yes.
Director Ulrich? Director Curtis?
Yeah,
And Chair Stone?
Yes. Okay, item 17. So, only, but questions answered, so the discussion, Scott?
Yeah, so I just wanted to reiterate the stance that the district has on health and safety. I'm really just going to kind of go over two things. To begin with, we have what we call it's the Injury Illness Prevention Plan, the IPP. It's a living document that has existed since around 2011. If new things come on board, they get added to this. Recent additions to this would have been a state mandate for addressing violence in the workplace. There was an addition that was mandated for COVID. So that's really what governs our, internally it's what regulates our code, right? It's all governed by state code. So I just wanted to let anyone know, if you wanted to ever take a look at it, it's available. I'm happy to share that. I don't want to hand it out at the meeting. It's hundreds of pages, but that's available. Similarly, I did want to go over the trainings were for last year and what we have proposed trainings for this year. So you'll see one sheet, it's titled 2024 training completions. Down the left-hand side has all the trainings that were completed. Down the right-hand side are two columns. One is the count of assignments. That's like the number of people that took any particular training. And then some of the duration is in hours, is how many hours were spent amongst everybody. Some of the trainings were a half hour. So if 10 people took it at a half hour, you would have 10 people at the count level and five in the hour level. There's a litany of trainings that were done last year. In total, there were 224 events that were attended by individuals for a total of 176 hours. And that's just for the training that goes from our training facilities. This does not include tailgate meetings at construction, or if we had a confined space entry, those safety meetings would all be in addition to this. For 2025, we have a series of topics that are presented here. These are scheduled. And I just wanted to let everybody know that it's important. We take our safety seriously here. We take it serious right, on a humanitarian level. and the ethical level is we're all friends and we work with each other. I don't want to see anyone hurt. People want to come in, they want to do their jobs, and go home and see their families.
So we need to have outside vendor help us with this.
Has to do with truck.
Finding this easy to keep up with.
So we still have an outside vendor that helps us with that. I think it is becoming, I've dove through this and it's my opinion that it is coming to the point where we could use more help from an outside vendor in that is their day-to-day job. Is at one point this particular firm, my understanding, worked for OVSD. It also worked for I forget if it was Montecito or Carp San.
I have an individual that we shared cost with, I think, 4 other districts that would do like a roadshow for in-person training. They were actually safety officers, so they did like assessments, et cetera. And my understanding is that person retired and they went to an actual consulting firm. Well, we went to a consulting firm and that's who we currently have.
So we have it. I think it would be imperative to have someone who's a professional take a look at our IIPP, frankly. And it's a living document. It started in 2011. I think it's probably time to take a look at it again in detail. I think that's perhaps a secondary item. Or
what you're suggesting is having someone else look at it and make recommendations as far as update.
Yes.
No, but if I may.
Yes.
How many folks, employees have any kind of safety certifications? You know what, hour, the hour, excuse me.
Oh, the number, everyone has
traffic control, fire extinguisher training. So we have a variety of compliance-based training, forklift training.
I was talking about the general OSHA and Cal OSHA, an hour, 3 hour, or specific courses that are general, either construction, general industry, or some specific stuff in fine space is one of them.
I don't know, because I know I have a 40-hour HAZWOPER. I can use a refresher course. It's been like 15, 18 years since I was last certified, and probably 10 years since my last refresher course. I do have a 40-hour, so that's the hazardous waste.
So our staff that have, so all of our OSHA required training is on our annual training log. They're all implemented individually. The solutions, it's now Vector Solutions. So it's not a combined training total number of hours. They're tagged individually, but they are OSHA. So anything that our industry requires, as far as OSHA is concerned, is covered in our training, and they're recorded individually based on quality training.
So what we're talking about is changing who might do the training.
I don't even know. At this point, I just wanted to frankly let the board know that safety is important. And that was the whole purpose of this discussion, is just to let folks know that safety is serious.
And we're bringing on new instructors, then we'll have another expense that may or may not come to the board depending on the size.
Correct. I have looked at it and I think reality is I have looked at it and the prices to update the IIPP would be a cost that would probably be lower than the threshold that would be required to go to the board.
It's not so much the training, it's my experience, it's the initial assessment of where you're at it. Your agency's added it. Because it is a lot of elements to it. And someone who that kind of look at things and see where there may be deficiencies. That not always
Assess the program, not do the training.
there you go. And then the training follows from that. It could be the same folks. I mean, even some of those consulting firms are other, they actually come onto the facilities and walk and make recommendations there that are official. They're complied with and avoidant, consequently avoidant of issues, the OSHA.
So who does most of the training that's listed on here?
A lot of this is online training at this point, which has its advantages that it's super efficient, but I think the disadvantage is you start to lose a person who would have been a professional that comes to the facility and who helps guide you.
I have a comment. Professional career, I've had experience with developing safety program. And in one agency I worked, I had to do a lot of the work myself. The safety manual and the program, and I was way over my head. A lot of regulations and the amount of work required. Expertise into it, so we ended up hiring a consultant. It's easy, an agency this size, easy to kind of turn a blind eye to all the regulatory requirements. So I appreciate Scott taking the initiative and looking at this, but I think we need to have an outside look at this stuff.
The big tributes to being outside agency or consultancy will review and assist in the actualization of ongoing safety program is in the event of an accident. Things get looked at. That's one of the first questions. Do you do this all in-house or do you have some outside help? The outside help, as you learned, and I've learned myself, has a tendency of having a little more current and a little more higher capacity of totality of a program. When you do it in-house, it's easy to miss things or be efficient as far as certifications or all sorts of stuff that if you get a hard-nosed review, your agency winds up looking real bad. It is one of those things. Yep, it helps.
I appreciate you putting this together because I had some rather pointed comments at the last meeting, but I want everybody to know that my dad didn't come home from work. He was in high school. He came home. When he did come home, he was in a wheelchair. So safety issues, the idea is not to send somebody off or penalize. It's to make sure they come home, from work as they left, maybe even in a better mood if possible. Anyway, and that was my whole thing, and I just look at this kind of stuff. It's that idea in mind, I'm doing a job. How can I get hurt? How can I prevent that from happening? That, just you thinking about it, addition all the training and all that. Maybe I shouldn't run the knife toward me today. I should run it away from, just simple stuff is be very important. It doesn't take long to think about that kind of stuff. So anyway, I appreciate you. And the thing I would say about all these training exercises and all that, when we talk about hiring somebody to come in, I think what we're kind of focusing on is who's doing the training and that kind of stuff. I think it would be important to have somebody in the field audit too. They took the class, they went to the class, they saw it online, whatever, but are they actually doing it? And that was one of the things I was interested in Israel's presentation, because, some of the slides, guys are wearing high hats, some of them they aren't. And they've got a crane overhead with them. So, these kind of things, is that really an issue or isn't it? Oh, I wasn't there, but base of it, I know I've worked with Taft Electric and, we had those guys hard hats all the time. The slides, they weren't. So it's just, are we really doing it? If you just had an auditor come out times a year and just go around with the clipboard, see what's really going on. But again, the whole idea is safe. Left. House that more.
Yeah, I ferocious fighter for these people. It's on a lot of different. Just really would hate something to a foul. We could have maybe done a little. I think everybody needs to go home safe. I think that opportunity. Really important. So if we could look at that and see if there's any way we can work things up. I think prize visits and audits are a great idea. Certainly think that side eyes on things like that can bring some things to light.
Other things for the board to invest in.
I appreciate your guys' comments. Thank you.
So going back to the slides, the only time there's not wearing hard hats is when there isn't a crane. So once we put the pumps in, crane goes away, we're able to take our hard hats. But every slide that they're in with the hard hats, that means there's a crane overhead.
Yeah, well, that's what I noticed, you know, when the crane was there, they were wearing them.
Yeah.
And when it wasn't, they weren't. Again, my experience with those very contractors is they're on all the time. They're on the job site. So, you know, like I say, I don't know that it necessarily would make a difference. In that situation, that particular job, it's just something I know. My experience with the same contractors. So anyway, I did, when I went back to look, and I noticed slides with the crane, they had them on. And I'm like, good, you know, that for sure. Yeah, anytime you got stuff hanging over your head, for sure. I could see too, when you're leaning down, looking into that well, a hard hat's gonna fall in the well. Now you got a problem to get it out of there, you know, it's like, you know. Anyway, I think you guys get the point of all this. It's really, it's for you. I mean, you know, I want to go home. Play games.
Thank you. Any action on that? We just got some direction, I guess. Moving on to item 18, approval of employment agreement of Scott as permanent general manager.
Awesome.
Is this for me to present? Okay. On behalf of A to Z, I've agendized this at their request. So Dennis drafted this employment agreement. Was discussed and presumably pre-approved by the board. So this is really a formality for transparency to agendize the proposed employment agreement and have the board formally adopt it. And then at a subsequent meeting after adoption, a salary schedule will be adopted, reflecting the salary for health.
Thank you, Nelson. Well, I think approval. I think the board members know what was on there. Yep. Got a chance to look at it, Scott?
Yes.
I mean, you're not throwing any rocks at us. So.
Not at all.
Okay.
I would have let you know already.
All right. Allison?
Dr. Martinson?
Yes.
Director Kentosh?
Yes.
Director Berg? Director Quillisi?
Yes.
Director Ulrich?
Yes.
Director Curtis?
Yeah.
Stone.
Yes. Welcome to permanency.
Thank you.
20.
Well, that's not 19.
Okay.
This is page 137, 138 of the packet. There was an estimate of connection cash deposits in 24-25 bigger than actuals by a factor of 5 over prior year. And got an answer back, which I don't understand.
Estimates from one year to the other were the same. We always estimate, or the last 3 years, we've estimated 25 full capacity charge connections. And so actuals received were significantly less when we actualized 23-24, which we're doing in the top part of each page. So per our policy, each connection charge proportionally based on our policy gets deposited directly into that respective reserve. And so each page represents that particular reserve. So a percentage of the 16,023.82 goes into this expansion capacity and trunk is the next one, third one. And so those represent the accounting for each of the funds. So we've estimated 25 capacity equivalents with ADU legislation requiring that a new construction ADU based on fixture units. That comes in generally at 50%. Majority of the accessory dwelling units are conversions, so they are zero capacity charges. We have very few full connection charges. At that, we have very few capacity charges that are not financed over 5 years. So then your realization of the actual income is deferred over 5 years. So that's going to grossly affect that estimated number and what you actually receive on it. And so I think that's what we're seeing. You'll probably notice budget that I'll estimate significantly less in capacity charges in the 526 budget because of this, because we've seen a definite shift in revenue that goes into those reserves from capacity charges, specifically because of ADU legislation.
So 25 capacity charges would be around 400,000. And so when you budget, you'll budget lower number because of deferrals and ADUs.
Yeah, deferrals are hard because you just really never know who's going to defer. I would say historically we had a lot of people entertain deferring payment. I think 0% interest is really enticing for people, and keeping their cash is really enticing right now. So I've definitely seen a shift in that. And so I think that has something to do with it. I think some of our capacity charges are the result of enforcement of unpermitted connections. And so that's an unexpected expense for some people. And so deferring at 0% interest is an easy way to resolve violation at over a period of time for somebody. So I think there are factors that have sort of set a trend over the last couple of years, and we'll take that into consideration when we budget anticipated capacity revenue next year. I mean, I say that, but I've had some conversations with some of the developers in town that have been in long-term discussions with the city of Ojai. I'm sure you know who I might be referring to, who have some forward momentum that hopefully we'll see in the coming school year or the year after that, and that will affect that number. Again, they're kind of wild card swings, so you never really know. Luckily, the nice thing about this is these reserves are somewhat by our policy a little bit restricted for very specific purposes, and so don't really affect our CIP budget and don't feed into operational budget directly. And so the swing is tolerable. Just had direct plans for capacity related projects or something of that sort. We get that number, but luckily it doesn't really affect honesty. So there's definitely some trending factors that we're starting to see.
In the city, there are projects that are planned now that have been approved by the Planning Commission. Will amount to 80 or so connections. Major one, 50 connections, waiting on state grants. So that may never happen. The one that's about 30 right now on South Montgomery that I think will happen. There's another one planned of transporting the Ojai 10th town 20 tents to some other location, most likely the public works yard, with 30. If that happens, that will happen. The city is not depending on state money, as far as I know. No, the grant has, I'm sorry, the grant, that state money has already come through.
Right.
So the city has the money for that. So if that goes ahead, that's 30 new connections that will happen. The 50 down on Bryant Street. iffy. Okay.
Anybody else? Thank you once again, staff, for some great staff reports. Real thanks for your nice presentation. To the next one. Report. I don't think we've had any committee meetings.
Question on 20. I asked in general about the plant intake going from, I remember from a year or two ago as being 3 to 1.4 MGD. 1.65 now, and the answer was that first groundwater is higher. How are we doing with an I program? That's what's going to fix that.
That is what's going to fix that. We are, I guess it's a few-fold answers. I think first and foremost, we have some of the line that's been piped, or some of the pipe that's been lined. We're looking at that. I think, I don't know, and I don't know if staff knows exactly where some of the water is coming in. It may be coming in through what they call the top hat area, which is where the lower lateral comes in.
Broken PSLs.
It could be broken PSLs, yeah. And
Have no legal reason to inspect.
Correct. We have no legal reason to inspect. We have well, I'll get to it in my comments, my general manager comments. But I think we have the ability now. We have a new engineering technician that's coming on board. And I think some of this stuff probably could use an engineering type mind to take a look at it big picture and see, can we break some of this down by neighborhoods? Are we getting flows from certain neighborhoods more than what we would expect? Are we getting flows in certain pipes more than what we expect? And I think there's some work that we can do to kind of get down and try to really hone in on where the problems are, as opposed to just using a general brush to try to solve them.
We don't have the infrastructure for SCADA to watch everything.
We can't watch everything, but we can start to look at some things, right? We can look at about 7 different areas that we can kind of monitor, whether it's lift stations, a meter. And I think we have the ability to try to figure out, is it all areas or is it one in particular area? I have gone so far to look at it. One thing I have noticed myself, I looked at a lot of the rain data that Yan was able to pull up for me, is we don't necessarily see a big blast of water at the first initial rain of the season. You don't see that flow. So what that's telling me is it's not illicitly connected roof drains. If it was roof drains, you would get it on that first rain. That's not what we're seeing. What we're seeing is over the course of time at 5, 6, 7 inches of accumulation, then it starts to come in. So whether it's area drains that are now saturated and it's working into area drains, that's a possibility. Whether it is just water that's kind of coming through the grass and the soil and hitting shallow pipes that, we call it yellow fill, where the soil is buried in, the sand shading, and it's percolating through that. I don't have the answer of where it's coming from, but I don't think it's not illicitly connected area drains. Just because if it was, we'd see that first blast, and it does tail off as the season goes through.
It's a question maybe for Bradshaw. Do we still have meters in all the basins?
I don't know that we currently have our flow meters set.
We do.
All of them?
We have flow meters, we call them smart covers, and monitor the flow. And that'll tell us when there's an increase. We have about 20 of them over our system.
And so we've probably got all the basins covered then.
And the lift stations have them too also.
Yeah, and that technology, I mean, there was a time where we were setting flow meters in different basins, so we've different type of technology to actually, and when we do have a good idea of where some of the trouble areas are. So we just need to figure out how we're going to finance some of these projects moving forward. And the good news is over time, we've made significant with our I&I efforts.
Yeah.
It's evident, really evident down there at the plant. We'll never totally reduce I&I, but we've made great progress over the years, you know, and the meters in there so we can further those kind of studies, if you will, to identify areas and prioritize projects and to get some things done.
And the numbers in 15 years have come down significantly. It's a sign that something. Do we have a cost of this month? Anyone? Or did we have one?
Coming up.
Wednesday. Okay, we'll get that report on the next meeting. The items of interest or correspondence? Board member comments.
Two, I guess. One is there was a big battery fire at the plant in Monterey. Orange Slough, I think they call it. It was a lithium fire, so I don't know what cause of that was or what learnings there might be, but we have a bunch of Tesla batteries here. Stuff, so I don't. Let's checking to see if there's anything that they learned that could affect how we maintain or operate our batteries, or what protection we might have. I know the county supervisors were not happy about that one in particular because they were assured that, you know, nothing can happen, nothing can go wrong. This apparently was their third fire, but this one was big enough that national news. So another thing is on the district's injury illnesses report, see the 12 year-to-date work days lost. Is there any way to know if those are illness or accident injury?
Those are injury related.
Injury related. But we're showing 0 accidents. How we have injury days off, we don't injury accident statistic.
Those are from the date of the report. So it's from one date of the report to the other.
Was it prior month or something? We're injury days off.
Seeing none. Do you have anything for us?
I do have one last little thing. When I came aboard, and after being here for a few weeks and months, it became really important for recruitment, right? And I wanted to give you guys an update on the recruitment. So we were excited to have a young engineering technician come. Tatiana is now working with us, and she's looking promising. She's had field trips out to the treatment plant. She's planning to go out and do some inspections with Israel, and it's pretty sharp mind. So we're excited to have her come. Collection system operator is going to be coming on February 10th. Will be their first day. We're looking at the treatment plant operator will be on February 18th for their first day. And I think we're looking at the environmental compliance inspector also starting in mid-February. So
beginning of March.
Beginning of March, I'm sorry. And one last thing is we are going to have an all hands meeting this Thursday morning. At that meeting, we have an opportunity for everyone to come in, everyone that works for the district to come in. We'll be looking at we have one person who has a new certificate. So we'll be looking to honor that. We'll talk a little bit about some upcoming projects and past projects. Similar to our last all hands meeting. So it is 8:15 on Thursday morning. I'll have some bagels and cream cheese with a light breakfast and some coffee. So if you want to come in real quick, you're more than welcome.
Instead, I showed up for the last one. It was actually Scott's first one, and I showed up for that. Nice to see camaraderie and people seeing each other and congratulating each other. I thought it was That's when I saw Israel's presentation for the first time. I think they're valuable. Urge you to continue to do that. Is that it?
That's it for me.
Make sure to check your emails. We'll be scheduling committee meetings. Responses appreciated. They'll be in short windows.
Please fill out your time sheets tonight.
But yeah, no, I guess I can.
All right, with that, we will adjourn this meeting at 8:01.